Instead of some witty introduction, let's get to the topic at hand, the cold. Today, people rarely challenge themselves with temperature, thanks to the wonders of central heating and air. Now, don't get me wrong, AC on a hot summer day is flat out blissful, and I rarely walk away from a warm fire. But I have to ask, could the epidemic of disease we're currently witnessing partially stem from removing these natural challenges, aka environmental hormesis? The evidence unquestionably points towards yes. So let's unpack one way to antidote this mayhem with deliberate cold exposure. This chilly practice has been in use for thousands of years, and was even written about in the world's oldest medical text, the Edwin Smith Papyrus, dating back to around 3,500 BC. And ever since then, cold therapies have popped up throughout the ages. The Egyptians used it to treat injuries. The ancient Greeks harnessed cold stimulating properties to treat fatigue back in 400 BC. And a few centuries later, the Romans used the cold to treat neurological disease. Thomas Jefferson also appears in the frosty history books because he allegedly took cold foot baths every morning for nearly 60 years. Thankfully, embracing the cold is still a thriving practice in Nordic and Eastern European cultures, where it's not uncommon to go for an ice swim. Yet the cold's recent surge in popularity primarily falls on the Iceman himself, Wim Hof. Wim Hof is a cheerful, energetic Dutchman renowned for his breathwork called the Wim Hof Method. This practice involves hyperventilating and performing a maximal breath hold at full exhalation. Now, truth be told, before I discovered the adaptive breath, I would perform the Wim Hof method during my morning ritual. And I assure you, it taps into our adaptive pathways. That being said, Wim Hof is also known for his cold-defying stunts. After all, he is called the Iceman. Some of these stunts include summiting the 19,000-foot summit of Mount Kilimanjaro wearing nothing but shorts and shoes. Plus, he has several world records, including immersing himself in ice for 112 minutes. If you're thinking these incredible feats come from Wim Hof being a rogue outlier, then consider this. He regularly leads groups to summit the Polish mountains in January, wearing nothing but the Wim Hof uniform of shorts and shoes. So how can these normal humans endure such harsh conditions? By tapping into the adaptive pathways.
Duh.
Okay, now let's build up our knowledge with the basics. Our response to cold is unsurprisingly driven by the dose. And in this case, intensity is how cold the environment is, and the duration is how long we stay there. This also means less time is needed with high intensity. So let's figure out how the cold unlocks the medicine cabinet from within. Evidence shows that there are roughly 10 times more cold receptors on our skin compared to receptors that detect heat. Researchers have even stated that activating a large portion of our cold receptors is similar to a mild electroshock to our sensory cortex. Yeah, it's that powerful. And when our brains register this electrical storm in the body, it floods the body with chemicals to heat us up, as well as compounds to help us flee from warmth. This includes stimulatory hormones and neurotransmitters, which not only cranks up our internal furnace, but also puts us in a hyper-focused state. And the key players stoking our inner fire are our thyroid hormones, cortisol, norepinephrine, and adrenaline. To emphasize how important these stimulatory factors are, consider this. Animals who don't have these glands can't tolerate the cold, which is similar to the symptoms of cold intolerance found in humans with low thyroid function. This sparks an intriguing question. Could exercising these glands through deliberate cold exposure improve their function? I mean, breath work improves lung, heart, and blood vessel function, so why wouldn't cold exposure improve thyroid and adrenal function? Now, I haven't seen any studies looking into this specific question, but the literature and plenty of anecdotal evidence suggest that deliberate cold exposure does in fact improve the function of these glands. Another process that occurs amongst all this stimulation is our bodies preserve heat by constricting the blood vessels near the skin and redirecting the flow to our core. Additionally, our mangy fur coats will stand up in a feeble attempt to preserve heat. Granted, it's not much help these days, but you get the idea. Now, if these heat-preserving mechanisms don't warm us up, then our bodies break out the big guns. movement. And we've all been there. Whether it's a frigid morning going to work or a cold evening out with friends, our teeth start chattering and our bodies start shaking like Bambi on ice. But there's a reason for this cold-induced tremor. It increases our metabolism by 500%. Now let's shift gears and look at how cold stress impacts our energy production. Do you remember our energy factories, the mitochondria? Well, there's a special type of fat called brown adipose tissue that is specifically designed to heat us up. In fact, it's brown because it's loaded with mitochondria, which means one thing. A hell of a lot of heat can be generated when these factories come online. And that process is kickstarted with the stimulatory chemicals surging in our blood. So we can think of cold exposure as a mini boot camp for our mitochondria, because it increases brown fat and improves mitochondrial function. Along those same lines, there has been a wild goose chase to create a compound that could generate more brown fat to help combat the obesity epidemic. But here's the secret. The adaptive breath, fasting, exercise, and cold exposure will all stimulate brown adipose tissue. So the elusive skinny elixir is already here. On a final note, evidence also shows that cold exposure during fasting will generate an amplified response, just in case there are any overachievers out there. All right, now for the takeaways.